famous Rabbonim of yesteryear. Friends, we are on the Hebrew date, the 29th of Tishrei, which actually marks the yard site, the Hilula of a really great Spanish-Portuguese Rabbi. His name was, I'll say it in Hebrew and in English, Rabbi Yitzchak Abravanel, or popularly known in English as Rabbi Don Isaac Abravanel, one of the great rabbis of world Jewish history, without a doubt. He was actually born in English year 1437, actually staggering time period, long time ago. He was born in Lisbon, in Portugal, and he passed away, to be precise, on the English date, the 23rd of September in year 1508. He was around 71 years of age of passing. Naturally, that is, as we say in Hebrew, the 29th of Tishrei, and he was actually buried at the end in Padua, in Italy, a place we've spoken about on this series, where we've already covered about 460 rabbis on this series of the great rabbis of yesteryear already. So let's explore some of the highlights of the great rabbis' life, because much can be reported over and much has been learned. Many of us will know about the great rabbi in of itself. Okay, so it's actually, there's, I think, a debate actually with regards to how the family name should actually be pronounced in of itself. Some people pronounce it as Abravanel or Abravanel even. So there's different pronunciations with regards to that. I think with regards to scholarly literature and from different communities, they would actually mention this as in different formats in of itself. It's actually interesting. I think his own son, Yehuda, or Judah, as we can say in English, insisted on Abravanel, if I'm not mistaken, and which is very, very interesting enough. And I think the etymology of this specific name in of itself is not necessarily certain. Some people say that it comes from the word Abravanel, which actually means in English, father of the rabbis of God, let's just say it in itself, which might explain that. Okay, so he was born in Lisbon, in Portugal, into one of the most, let's say, oldest and decorated, distinguished Iberian Jewish families. And it's actually interesting. I think his antecedents having reported over escaped the massacre in Castile in the year 1391. This reported over. He was a student of a famous rabbi of Lisbon, or Portugal, naturally, of Rabbi Yosef Chaim, Rabbi Joseph Chaim, as we say in English, and he became very, very well versed with regards to Torah in of itself, and encompassment of Torah, rabbinic literature, and was very steeped and great in Torah learning in his lifetime. He devoted much of his early years to studying Jewish philosophy. It's actually Abravanel, the great Rabbi Abravanel, is quoted as saying that he counted, I think, Rabbi Yosef ibn Shem Tov as his mentor, as his, let's say, rabbinic mentor in of itself. I believe at the age of 20, he wrote on the original form of, let's say, the natural elements on religious questions and prophecies. He would actually write various different Torah colossal works in of itself. And I think he had huge amounts of intellectual abilities, very, very much second to none, and was also a master when it came to, let's say, financial matters in of itself. And this attracted, let's just say, attention, apparently reported over, of King Afonso V of Portugal, who reported over employed him as a treasurer over there. He was, I believe, the king of Portugal from the years 1438 until he passed away in the year 1481 himself. That would have been a very, very long 43-year tenure, if I'm not mistaken. He had a very, very prestigious and high position, we can say, over there. And he had he had a vast amount of wealth that I believe he inherited from his father to aid, let's say, his various other people inside the Jewish community. I think, if I'm not mistaken, his patron Afonso captured the city of Arzila in Morocco. The Jewish captives over there faced being sold, unfortunately, as slaves. And Rabbi Abravanel contributed huge sums of money to the ransom and personally arranged for collections throughout the country of Portugal. This is what's been reported over. He also wrote to, let's say, the very learned and wealthy friend at the time. I think his name was Vital or Yehia Nissim da Pisa, on behalf of the captives. This was, I think I read over with regards to a specific article I'm reading over here. After the passing of Afonso, he was obliged to relinquish his office. So he stepped down, or he couldn't continue this position of himself. It was reported over, he was accused by King John II of connivance with the Duke of Braganza, this was reported over once again, who had been, I think, executed on the charge of conspiracy. So Rabbi Abravanel, warned in time, he saved himself by, let's say, a flight. He flew to Castile in the English year 1483, and his very, very large fortune at that time was confiscated by a royal decree. And then I think he would later on move to Toledo. Toledo is a place we've spoken about on this series on various occasions before. It's obviously the city, a city and a municipality in modern Spain in of itself, and which is very, very interesting enough. I think there was a very large Jewish community in Toledo, hence the family name Toledano. I'm not too sure if it's twinned or related to that in itself, but it's very, very similar root to it. So when he ended up in Toledo, he had a new home, his new base. He was very busy with regards to studying Torah, vast amounts of Torah throughout the day. He spent a lot of time with regards to that. And he wrote, I believe, extensive commentaries on various different books in the Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, respectively, especially in Sefer Joshua, the book of Joshua, Yehoshua, as we say, the book of Shoftim, Judges, and Shmuel, and Samuel. Shortly afterwards, I think he entered the service of the House of Castile, together once again with various different other prestigious people, let's just say in themselves, an influential converso, someone with the name Don Abraham Senor. I think he was actually a Sephardi rabbi himself, so we'll title him as Rabbi Don Abraham Senor. And he was a banker, he was also a politician, and a very, very great rabbi. And he was actually, I think, from Segovia, if I'm not mistaken. That is, I think, in part of Spain, if I'm not mistaken. He undertook to, let's say, farm the revenues and to supply provisions for the royal family. Contracts that let's just say in itself, he carried out to the entire satisfaction of Queen Isabel, the first of Castile. And I think at that point in time, there was Reconquista. I think Rabbi Abravanel actually advanced, let's just say, various different considerable sums of money to the king. And when the Jewish people were ordered, banished by the Catholic monarchs of Spain, with the Alhambra decree, he did all, let's just say, all he had in his power realms in of itself, within regards to that, to induce the king to revoke the edict. Unfortunately, I think he unsuccessfully offered the king 30,000 ducats at that point in time. I think in modern time, that is about £60,000. I'm not too sure, give or take, with regards to inflation or currency. And then he left Spain with the fellow Jewish community and went to Naples, where after, at that point in time, he entered the service of the king. And for a short time, he lived in, let's just say, in a period of shalom there was at that point in time. There wasn't much disruption in of itself. But when the city was taken by the French, bereft of all his, let's just say, his possessions, he followed the young king, Alfonso, to Messina in the year 1495, and then would eventually go to Corfu. I think in the year 1496, he settled in Monopoli. And Monopoli is, I believe it's a town in Italy in of itself. I think in the metropolitan city of Bari, and it's a region of the area of Apulia. It would be great to visit these places maybe one stage in time. If someone has visited there, please drop me a comment here on the video. Eventually, I think he would land in Venice in the year 1503. Remember, Venice, various different occasions, had a great Jewish and Torah communities in of itself, and he rendered much of his service was very important over there. He was employed, I think, in negotiating a commercial treaty between Portugal and the Venetian Republic. So he was very, very much on the pinnacle positions all throughout Italy, Spain, Portugal over these years. I think several times during the mid to late 15th century, he personally spent large amounts of his personal fortunes to bribe the Catholic monarchs to permit the Jewish people to remain in Spain. So we can see all throughout Jewish history, unfortunately, there's been anti-Semitism where bribes have been taking place, and so many different things as a nation we have had to go through. Rabbi Abravanel is claimed to have offered them 600,000 crowns for the revocation of the edict. It's reported that Ferdinand said to have hesitated, but was prevented from accepting the offer by Thomas de Torquemade, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, the Grand Inquisitor, let's just say, who was reported of, he dashed into royal presence and throwing a crucifix down before the king and the queen, and asked whether, like, let's just say Judas, they would betray let's just say their lord for money. I think in the end, he managed only to get the date for the expulsion at that point in time, the Inquisition, as we call it, delayed by 2 days. It was only succeeded in that sense. He passed away in Venice, I believe, in the year 1508 and was buried in Padua next to, I think his rabbi at the time was Rabbi Yehuda Mintz. I think Mahari Mintz, also probably known as really, really great rabbi. I think he himself officiated as a rabbi of Padua for 47 years. And much more can be said within and researched within regards to that. Now, he wrote a lot of great Torah works in of itself. So maybe it's about time we explore some of the works that he wrote. I'll just say out the books in Hebrew, just for simplicity reasons. The Pirush on the Torah, he wrote a commentary on the Torah, as we stated before. Absolutely phenomenal in of itself. Then there was Pirush on Nevi'im Rishonim V'Achronim. This was on, I think, various different passages with regards to it. 6 questions on each parsha, if I'm not mistaken. Then there was the Zevach Pesach, which was printed, I think, in the year 1496. It was a work on 100 questions, I think, to do with the Leila Seder, the Passover night, the Pesach night in of itself. And then there was a Nachlat Avot, also in the year 1496, which was, I think, based on the ethics of the fathers, Pirkei Avot, in of itself. Then there was a Perush Lomora Nevuchim, which is Perush on the specific book in of itself of the Rambam, which many of you, I'm sure, would have heard of. I think it was separated into different halakim, different volumes in of itself. Sifrei Hagot, he wrote various different other books, including the Ateret Zekenim, which was a Hagot. It was on the explanations of the parashot, difficulties with regards to it. I think in the Sefer Shemot, it was based on, in of itself, the book of Exodus, Tzurat, Hayisodot, printed in the year 1460, reported over. Then there was a Rosh Amana, which was printed, I think, in the year 1491. And then there was also the Ma'anei HaYeshua, popular name, also in of itself, in the year 1497. And then there was a Mashmiah Yeshua, printed in the year 1498, which was a trilogy. I think also based on the Torah Nevi'im and Ketuvim, respectively, the Yeshuot Mashiach, which was, I think, another famous, incredible book in itself. The Shemayim Chadashim, printed in the year 1498, which was another great book in of itself, on, I think, based on astronomy. Then there was the Mapalot Elohim, which was printed actually in the year 1501, so in the 16th century territory over here, which was on Emunat Chidushim, various different teachings within regards to various different Torah topics in itself. And then there was a She'elot V'Tshuvot L'She'ol HaKohen, which is interesting, I think printed in the year 1507. Another fantastic, a book based more on a philosophical book in of itself, but I think once again connected to the Moreh Nevuchim also. Through among his family, just was his brother, I think Rabbi Yaakov Abravanel, which he himself was another great rabbi. I think among his descendants, he had various different descendants, including Silbin Santos, if I'm not mistaken. That's what's reported over here in this, I'm using this... let's just say this Wikipedia article over here, and various other descendants also. So he passed away, as we stated before, it was in the English year 1508. So we're talking about, at the time of recording, we're talking about 516 years ago approximately, here in 2024, one of the great rabbis of yesteryear, the author of many different great Torah books. And there was Rabbi Yehuda Abravanel also was among his descendants. Also, I think he was known on the name of the Ona Avrao, if I'm not mistaken. He was another great rabbi. I think he himself passed away in the English year 1530. That would have been about 22 years after the great rabbi himself. He was a doctor also. He was a philosopher. And maybe we'll speak about him at another time. We'll try and find out when his Hilula is, when his yard site is, and try and find out more within regards to this great rabbi. But from the great rabbis of Portugal, Spain, of yesteryear, of Italy, we've covered him. It's his Hilula. Don't forget to light candles in the great rabbi's memory here on Chavtet Tishrei. Rabbi Isaac, one of the great rabbis in of itself. Rabbi Abravanel, you can pronounce it different ways in of himself. Rabbi Don Isaac Abravanel, Zechet Tzaddik Debracha. Please, everyone, subscribe to the channel. We've covered 470 rabbis. Like the videos, share the videos. We are community here. We're learning about the great rabbis of yesteryear. So wishing you all well. Take care and blessings here from Israel to all of you.